All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Rich Von Owen here for Weather Legends. I'm your host here today. A special live little broadcast we're going to do today with our legends here. We've got them both. We've got everybody. Pat Pagano and Bill Corbell are going to join us today. Try to get Joe and Joe. They may hop in. We'll see if they pop in a little bit later. But I did want to basically get a little bit of a discussion going about, of course, Erin. Hi, Pat. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hi. Okay. Hunkered down here. Happy this
busy week.
Way away.
Busy week. You know, we've seen so many storms, and we talked about this in one of our Weather Legends segments that we did a little while ago about the tropics, how it's about location. You know, you can have a big storm out in the middle of the ocean, and it's like a tree in the forest. You know, it's out there. We know it's there, but not hitting land, not making landfall does make all the difference. And you can have a very small storm that say it's just a depression or remnants that can do a lot of damage. So I think that's the key today. But Bill, you want to talk a little bit about Erin itself? It's a monster storm, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Up there and show you. Yeah. Here we go.
This one really caught my attention. I know it's out in the water. There's a satellite view. I mean, the center right now is over 400 miles southeast of Long Island and moving thankfully out to sea. But a couple of things struck me. It intensified. This I almost couldn't believe. It intensified from a Category 1 to a Category 5 storm in one day. I don't think we've ever seen a rapid intensification of that degree before. Do you guys ever remember anything like that?
Nope. And it was expected, though. Yeah, it was kind of expected.
Yeah, well, this seems to be happening more frequently as, again, the climate changes a bit, and it seems to be feeding into these rapid intensification scenarios. Anyway, interesting. I saw a report this morning near a buoy near the center. The central pressure was 28.40 inches. Now, I've had this barometer since I was a little kid. It still works. There's our normal pressure up here. That's 28.4 way over here. And my barometer says for that, storm. Well, that's for sure. But that is about as low as you're going to find the pressure around here. And with that buoy reported, and you're a boater, Richard. I don't think you want to be out there in this in any size ship, 45 feet. Even an aircraft carrier is going to be rocking and rolling in 45-foot waves. There's that rapid intensification, the size of it, measured from northeast to southwest. It's over 1,000 miles wide. That's like the entire eastern seaboard almost. And the tropical storm force winds, the diameter is 500 miles. That is huge. And the central pressure is very low. And one reason the winds are no stronger is because while the pressure is very low, it's spread out. No, it's not a condensed,
tightly wound, right?
Yeah, like Andrew was. It hit Florida as a Category 5, but it's teeny compared to this thing. So the energy is greater because it's spread out over such a huge hunk of real estate.
But you know what's interesting? I was watching the news last night, and even with the breakers on Long Island, like 8 to 12 feet, there were people out there surfing.
Well, I'm not a surfer, but they look for that kind of thing. I guess they're good at it. I didn't hear of any reports of anybody drowning.
Yeah, I mean, if you're experienced, Pat, you know, I've seen a lot of these surfers, they go to Hawaii, they go to these really crazy places around the world where if you ever watch the videos on like YouTube and on social media, you think these guys, you're talking like 15, 20, 25-foot waves, and they're riding these things, you know, and I guess they have like the jet skis, the safety there, though. There's a whole scheme of how they handle that, you know, so they're used to that. I guess here on the East Coast, it takes something like this particular situation, Bill and Pat, to produce, you know, this unique situation of 15, 20-foot, you know, swells and breakers coming into the Long Island and New Jersey and probably the Cape Cod. I think it's going to go up to the Cape too. But, you know, I think a lot of it's just common sense. And I put on some of my posts, you know, revel in and respect Mother Nature from a distance. You know, I think that's the safe thing to do. Watch it, you can video it, but just don't get close because the force of those waves and water, as we know, can be, you know, pretty bad and devastating. I think this is just one of those situations where it's kind of common sense this time. You know, there's days when there's waves out there, 2 to 4, 4 to 5s, 4 to 6s, and people will get in trouble. They'll get in trouble in even those littler ways. Now you push them over 15. I think the average person says, not a good idea. But Bill, just to mention to your point, Bill, reading a lot of what's happened with Erin, and the intensification. Last year we did have Milton and Helene, which I believe were top 5 or top 3 in terms of rapid intensification. You mentioned that about the amount of millibars in 24 hours. I think it was like 70 or 80. It was some insane, or the wind speed that went up. Yeah, the wind speed increase. I remember covering those storms last year, when they went towards the Big Bend of Florida. So it's not unprecedented. But what I want to talk about a little bit when people have been asking is, it did have rapid intensification, went from a 1 to a 5, and then it kind of weakened a bit as it drifted north. We had what's called eye wall replacement. We can talk about that a bit. But then the size of the storm increased so big, Bill. What attributes to that, the increase in size?
That's a good question. I think the energy was condensed around the center. You have to talk to the hurricane experts. And as it moved northward, that energy just expanded. So while the winds got weaker, the entire energy of the system got stronger as it moved over that very warm water off of Florida and off the Carolinas. I suspect that might have been part of the deal there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this looks like a Gulf Stream kind of track, Pat. I mean, we've seen some of these before in the past. We had some that actually, I think it was Joaquin many years ago. It stalled down there. It caused the ship to sink. And then we've had storms. I believe it was actually on 9/11. We had a storm out there, that was doing something similar to this back in 2001. So the close calls are there, Pat. But I mean, we always have this situation where, there's a lot of hype about a storm that really doesn't hit the coast, doesn't make the landfall. But in your opinion, Pat, I mean, it could happen, but it's all about the steering winds, right, Pat?
Yeah, and I still go with the assumption that you really cannot predict hurricanes. We're getting better and better at it, but you can't predict hurricanes. I mean, let's go back to last weekend. The Euro was bringing Erin right up to Long Island, and of course GFS, the American model, was continuing to sweep it out to the north and east.
Yeah.
So the GFS did a better job than the Euro.
Oh,
but back in the day of Sandy, we all know that the Euro nailed it over a week in advance. So, I mean, who's to say what model would be right? And you just have to, I think, go day by day with hurricanes. There's 2 more systems out there now in the Atlantic. That could be what is it, Fernand and Gabrielle. The modeling right now is saying that is going to stay well offshore. Yeah, there you go. The red would probably be Fernand, and the orange would be Gabrielle. And they're saying that Gabrielle is going to be facing some kind of hostile environment. So who's to say, though, what will happen with those 2?
Well, I'll tell you what, if I may, the National Hurricane Center nailed this right from the start. Their track very rarely even changed slightly for the entire length of the storm. So they've got their act together. I think they know what they're doing, and that's the source to go to as far as I'm concerned. Not just looking at, what's the GFS saying? What's the Euro saying? They've got a lot more going on and a heck of a lot more expertise on this than either of us do.
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
So that's
I like
the go-to place.
Yeah, and I was very happy, Bill and Pat, with the consistency of the modeling going, beyond 5 days. We talked about this in the previous segment that we did here at Weather Legends about how much more accurate these days. Bill, you mentioned this about the chart you had. I don't have it with me here, but how much more accurate even 5 days out we're getting. Yeah. I mean, it did have that track, Pat, going through the Gulf Stream, making the turn north and going east. A lot of people started to panic. And on social media, there were even people saying, it's going to come on land. It's going to be another Sandy. But we believed that the technology, the modern technology, and the modern improvements in our forecast system is better we have seen that, Bill, right? You mentioned that, Bill, about that act. What was it like? Since like 50 years, and you mentioned it too, right?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like the 4-day forecast years ago, where I mean, our 2-day or 1-day forecast, because it was 3 or 4 days just 15 years ago. Can you see my screen if I show you something?
I think I can. Let me see if I can do that for you, Bill.
See if you get it.
All right, let me try here. All right, I can probably get that for you. Let me see. Okay.
You should see the three of us there if you are.
Okay. Well, you got a crazy thing going there, but if you can get the window, I can. Yeah, let's see.
That's not it.
Well, that's your computer.
Oh, geez.
Live TV.
All right. I don't know how to stop that. Sorry about
All right,
that.
I'll take it out for now. It's okay. But
the point I wanted to make is this: I put a graphic together showing the track of Erin and the track of the 1938 hurricane. The last really major storm to hit Long Island. In fact, the worst one in modern times. They paralleled each other exactly till east of Florida, just off of Georgia. Back then, the forecasters thought it would go out to sea like Erin did.
Right.
Instead, it went past Cape Hatteras and made a left turn straight up the coast to Long Island.
Right.
And hit us. Nobody knew what was coming. But this time we had that high pressure area, you see that H up there, that was blocking things. It blocked Erin from taking that. My point is this: another time, another storm in that same spot may not have the same environment to the north to shove it out to sea. So I look at Erin as a warning shot of what could eventually will. This year, next year, 20 years, 30 years.
Right.
I mean, major hurricane return rate for Long Island is about every 70 years. We haven't had a major hurricane hit us since 1938. So do the math.
Yeah, sooner or later. And the last landfalling direct was Gloria, Bill?
Gloria, 1985.
85, right? So that's what? So it's 40 years ago. So we're in that zone. We're getting close now. And I think Sandy you can almost count, but it was not a hurricane.
It was not a hurricane, and
but it was aided, Bill, like you and Pat just mentioned, about the upper dynamics. See, what happens is, it's funny. I think a lot of times we've had this situation. It just hasn't been perfect. It's a matter of time before perfect happens. 1991, the perfect storm, the Halloween storm, very similar to what happened to Sandy. We had Hurricane Grace off to the south, very similar to what you're seeing right now with Erin. I mean, this was Grace. The difference was, Pat and Bill, to the north and east across Newfoundland, there was a big cold high pressure pushing down and blocking it from getting out. Right. A lot of what we see with problems, whether it's blizzards, whether it's coastal storms or hurricanes or tropical systems, is stalling. Okay. We saw that happen in Harvey in Texas. When a storm cannot escape, when it can't go on the path, and I just showed you what, Bill, you mentioned about the National Hurricane Center doing a good job. Look at the tube there. See the acceleration, the movement. That is usually a good thing, because that means the storm is not sitting around getting blocked, getting deflected. Sandy got deflected. The perfect storm, Halloween storm, got deflected and sat around. The worst tremendous damage that we've seen with storms, Harvey, the same thing in Texas. You don't want that. That is what you definitely don't want here. And I think as a forecaster, Pat and Bill, you're not just looking at the hurricane. You're looking at what's happening north of us, right? Pat, that makes sense, right, Pat?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because with these next two systems, if you look at the computer models, there's a big trough coming into the east next week. And if anything, that should help keep these systems east and out to sea with the help of God.
Yeah.
It
works together.
I was going to say that the reason hurricanes are difficult to forecast, although they're getting better, is that this is the time of year where winds to our south are very light. As you go north in latitudes up where we are, you still get some pretty strong westerly winds or southwest or northwest winds with the jet stream to blow these things out. But down south, that's not the case. So the cones tend to be wider. But up here, it gets caught up in those winds, and the forecast becomes very reliable. But again, if the winds die down here, we've had hurricanes in the past. So just keep your eyes and ears open for this.
Yeah. And Bill, this is why I say something too. This Erin went from a 1 to a 5 down to a 2. You know, people hear the word the category, but there's a lot more than just what the category is, right, Bill? I mean, you got to really consider a lot of other things with a hurricane, but I think of most is the location and direction it's moving, right?
Yeah, that is true. The categories refer to the winds, of course, but a lot of damage from these storms comes from the water. So that's the category does not necessarily reflect the strength of the storm. In this case, we don't have hurricane force winds, yet we're getting 10, 15-foot waves offshore. We're getting coastal flooding, all these things, part of that storm. So yeah, just the category is not the all-important feature. It's just one of several factors that go into the danger or possibilities of problems that storms like that can cause.
And Pat, just to remind everybody, Sandy, you know, people look at this, it's actually scary shades of Sandy in here. You know, I mean, this is kind of what it looked like. The only difference was, Pat, it wasn't moving northeast, it was curling northwest.
Right.
So direction of impact, perpendicular impact is a big factor. Explain that a bit, how the wind, around that storm.
Yeah, I think even myself, I always forget about it. If we're looking at a hurricane that has 100-mile-per-hour winds and it's moving north at 20, the impact is actually 120-mile-per-hour winds. Because you have to factor in the forward movement. And usually when they get into the northern latitudes, as Bill said, they pick up a little bit of speed and then a lot of speed because of the jet stream. And that, I think, is a saving grace for anybody in New England. And by the way, I still say that the Cape Cod area is prime. They have not had a hurricane in a long, long time. You know, Bill, I don't know if you remember their last hurricane. I think it was Bob.
Oh yeah, probably, because that passed just east of Long Island, right?
Right. But they're definitely overdue. So I think that's something to look out for this season.
Yeah. And we talked about it again before, like I said, with, the projections from NOAA, Bill, came out early and they were going for above normal. And then the summer came and we had the Saharan dust. We had, the
dry Saharan area,
the dries. And for weeks and weeks and almost a month, people said, oh, now we got to back off and change it. But they kind of stuck to their guns. And now we're seeing this active pattern where indeed there are, a number of disturbances, some of which will likely become tropical storms or hurricanes. Now, this goes right through November. We got time, Bill. So, I mean, do you still think the above normal forecast is pretty much on track, Bill?
We have not statistically reached the peak of hurricane season yet. That's what, the third of the way, this first or second week of September, where you see the max development of these things. So, yeah, you've still got a good, and don't forget that 1938 hurricane was late September. Look when Sandy came along. And by the way, talking about speed of movement, that 38 hurricane was the fastest hurricane on record as far as they know. And they estimated that as it crossed Long Island, the center crossed Long Island was moving north at 50 miles per hour. Went from Cape Hatteras to Long Island in 8 hours. You'd be hard pressed to drive from Cape Hatteras to Long Island
in 8 hours, right? I think they termed it, Bill, the Long Island Express.
Exactly. That's the term they use.
Yeah.
It was quite a storm.
Yeah. So I'm trying to call up one of the Rockaway cameras here that I can see. I had a little bit of a shot of it right there, so just bear with me. But yeah, Bill, I mean, you mentioned about the 1938, the Sandy, and this. Again, the difference being is basically just the track, right? I mean, is that really what we always have to be cognizant of with any storm, whether it's a tropical storm, whether it's a depression or remnants or even a major hurricane, and the tracks, basically they can change, right? We've seen that. But in this case, this was pretty well done. I mean, Bill, to your knowledge, I mean, did you see anything that was kind of questionable on the onset? This was pretty darn well.
Very well forecast. And again, don't get deceived by that little cone you see. And there's usually a little line inside the forecast cone.
Right.
That line doesn't mean anything really. You have to be aware that things shift. So no, this is a great forecast, and hopefully the next one that comes along, whenever it is, maybe this year, maybe not, that the forecast will be just as good and we'll get enough of a heads up to prepare for these things.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, man, my cameras are acting weird today. I guess a lot of people are going on those trying to look at those too. But anyway, I guess there's a lot of places you can go on the internet, social media, cameras. You can see what's going on, or you can just take a ride down to the beach. And again, the advice is just, be smart, common sense. A lot of the communication that we do as meteorologists is to be, a human, to advise, to say, look, you've got free will here. You can go down and do what you want. But I think as meteorologists, to protect and to advise and say, listen, this is one of those times you don't want to be on the beach. You want to be like on the boardwalk, but you could still watch.
Well, you can go. Yeah, it's not like you're gonna get a tidal wave and just you don't go swimming. You don't go in the water. You didn't even go up to your knees because of what's going on.
Yeah, and Bill, what's happening here now? It's amazing. Now this storm is how many miles, Bill? About 1,000 miles southeast of Long Island, probably.
No, right now it's I measured out. The center is about a little over 425 miles or so southeast of the island.
Okay, so now even though it's that far away, we hear we're getting effects. I mean, and you still could get coastal flooding. What's happening? What's the force that is causing, still the issues even with a storm that far away? What's happening?
Same thing of all weather systems, a difference in pressure. That's what does it. Air tends to move from high pressure to low pressure and spiral around it. So the greater the difference in pressure over a given distance, the stronger the winds. And in this case, the pressure differential is so great even overhead that we're getting strong easterly winds. So that's just just math. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, the propagation. You can almost see on this the infrared. We're barely touching the outer bands, but yet you walk outside, you can tell something's weird. You go to the beach, you can tell something's crazy, Pat. And just imagine being in the core of that storm as opposed to being on the outskirts. I think that's all you need to know. When it comes to location, and that's what we started with here, and a lot of
we'd be talking differently now if you saw that movement not to the upper right, but straight towards us. Trust me.
Yeah.
We'd be very nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it looks like even Bermuda got a little bit spared now down there in the right corner there, that little island.
How about the cruise ships go to Bermuda this time of the year? There's several out of New York City. I assume they just don't go.
I don't know. I'm hoping.
I don't know about that because I took a trip to Bermuda out of New York City last April, Bill and Chris. And once we got offshore, I estimated, the wind on their equipment that I was watching was 60, 65. And I estimated the waves to be about 20, 25 feet. For 24 to 36 hours, they closed all the outside decks. We couldn't go out, and there were 6 of us in my little group, 3 of which got very sick.
Yeah,
and I wasn't one.
I doubt they're going through this.
I doubt.
I've heard. If someone just told me, I heard of it. There was a cruise ship out there about a few days ago and they ran into some of the outskirts of it, and they were rocking and rolling pretty good. I would hope that they're smart enough to divert and go around them, but just by personal experience, I would try to avoid cruising between August, September, and October.
Bermuda, yes, or even in the Caribbean.
It's probably not a good idea. Do it early, do it later. It's just you're rolling the dice here, and a lot of things can go very wrong, obviously, as we know. Yeah. But again, it's been a while going back to last season that we've seen a major like this, and this was a close call. But I think we count our blessings knowing that this one didn't have the proper track to come right down Broadway to get the tri-state area or anywhere across the East Coast. I think the Outer Banks, Bill, had a little bit of, some hits there. I mean, they had tropical storm warnings up there, but this is just a basically close call, glancing blow, and I think what happens, Pat, too, what I tend to see is that with a big storm like this, it tends to reset the deck a little bit, like you mentioned. I think there's going to be a change in the weather pattern over the few weeks coming. A lot of cooler air is progged by the climate center, and maybe we get that fall feel for a while. Maybe it stabilizes things for a while. But like you said, Bill, it's a long season. The water's still warm. Things can reset. Mm-hmm. And by October, certainly late September, October, we could be right back looking at something like this that could go in the wrong direction this time. So I guess we just count our blessings this time. But
stay tuned.
Yes, we did a good job, though. We really talked about this a few months ago when the Outlook came out in May. And, truth be told, it's about location. And you just watch the forecast. We have a lot of good technology today. We have better satellites. We have better tracking. And we've got better models. And like Bill said, 50 years ago, the percent, it wasn't that good.
No.
5 days out. Now, it's 5 days out as good as it was 1 or 2 days out back in 1960, 1970. So while it's a lot of fear on the internet, you hear all the time, a lot of hype. We're in better shape now here in this day and age than we were a long time ago, and that's good news, right?
Yep.
All right, terrific. Well, thank you very much for chatting about this today, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I'm sure there'll be more. And like I said, hopefully, this isn't our storm. Hopefully, there won't be one that's ours. But like we said, sometimes a Gulf storm in Florida, the remnants, like we saw with Ida, like we saw with Irene, like we saw with Floyd, doesn't take much to do a lot of damage here in the tri-state with just the remnants or the end point of a depression or storm. So that's what I fear. I fear that could be pretty bad. Isaias too, another good example.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you both again for joining us. Have a great weekend. Looks like a nice weekend coming up. The weather does shape up good. And after that, well, we'll see what sends our way. We'll keep an eye on this, of course, down the road. As Pat mentioned, there's more out there, but we'll keep an eye on them. All right.
We'll do.
Okay. Bye, Rich.
Thanks, guys. All right. Have a good one.